Hi, my name's Daryl Stringer, and today we're going to look at 11 real estate photographer websites from Australia, the USA and England. And we're going to assess each one based around 5 criteria just to see how they stack up and how they compare. So the 5 criteria we're going to use are: 1, what do they do? So is it immediately clear for a visitor to the site that this photographer does real estate or architectural photography? Number 2 is, do we know where they are? So what geographical area are they in? What cities do they cover, etc. Number 3, what's the next step for a visitor to the site? So what does the photographer want the visitor to the website to do once they get there? Number 4, will it rank well in a Google search? It's no point having the greatest, most beautiful website the world has never seen. You need to be ranking well. One of my coaching clients made the switch from wedding photography to real estate photography late last year, and I helped him put together a new website. In around October of last year, he was found on about page 7 in a Google search for his area. So he was nowhere, no one was finding him. But we implemented a series of steps to get him going and get it ranking. Today, his website is found in 2 spots on page 1 of a Google search for his area. He's getting a lot of inquiries through his website and it's going really well. So there are things that you can do to move your website and have it positioned right. And number 5, is the website responsive? Now, a lot of visitors to your site won't necessarily be looking at their desktop or laptop. They might be looking at a tablet or maybe on a smartphone. So you need to have a site that is responsive. So that means it automatically changes dimensions in response to the dimensions of the device that the visitor is using to look at your website. So that's really important too. So let's go through these 11 websites now and see how they go. Okay, first up we've got Palm Real Estate Photography. So question 1 is, do we know what they do? And yes, they make it really clear. Palm Real Estate Photography, so that's nice and easy. Number 2, where are they? That was a little harder. I've got nothing to tell me on the front page. Did find something when I went down into the services page, and right down the bottom it mentions PREP serves Greater Volusia County. It would be better though if that was a little bit more obvious. Now, that took a little bit of finding to see where they actually are. And number 4, will it rank well? Well, there's not a lot of text or information about where they are or what they do. If we go into different pages, we can kind of see a little bit, but we still don't know really much about where they are. When I did a search for photographers in this area, I couldn't find them at all. They weren't coming up. Maybe I wasn't entering the right terms. I'm not sure, but I searched in their area and couldn't find them. Number 5, is it responsive? And it kind of is responsive. It worked okay on my tablet. It kind of looked like a shrunk down version of this. But I couldn't get the menu to work at all on my smartphone. So it was set up to work on a smartphone, but it didn't work for me. So that was a bit of a problem. So whilst I thought this site is full of large, attractive photos, I felt that there was a lot that let it down as well. So the big photos are really nice, but it could do with a lot more written content and certainly better functionality on a mobile device. Here's the next site that we're looking at. So number 1, do we know what they do? Yeah, we do. It's property marketing solutions, providing fine real estate photography and virtual tours. So that's really great. Number 2, where are they? Well, it says that they're located in Columbia and beyond, but I found over 20 towns called Columbia in the USA. I don't know, maybe people over there automatically know which one it is. We do have the phone number listed, but I'd like it to be a little bit clearer because there are a lot of Columbias located around the place. Number 3, what's the next step? There is a large phone number listed at the top, which is helpful, and if we just scroll down, we do have this mailing list sign up, which is good, but it's not very compelling. It says we only send out minimal numbers of emails. Really, it's not really inspiring me to add my details in there. So number 4, will it rank well online? Well, there's not a lot there to rank in terms of copy on the front page, although they do have greater details on some of these other pages about what they do. But it does rank quite well in a search, in a local search, but I think that's because the website's been around for so long. So this is a 12-year-old domain, so that's going to help it with its ability to rank well. And number 5, is it responsive? Yeah, it is, and it looked really good on my smartphone and my tablet, so a really good job there. So overall, I think this is a very good site. It just needs some minor improvements, but I thought it's done really, really well. Okay, number 3 is Access Real Estate Photography. So do we know what they do? Yes, we do. Straight away, we've got Real Estate Photography in strong across the top, which is great. Where are they? Well, it took a bit of searching, but I found it at the bottom of the page. If we go right down here, it says Real Estate Photography, Virginia, Maryland, DC. I think that could be a lot clearer for visitors. We shouldn't have to be searching around somewhere to try to find it. I'd like it a little bit more obvious. Number 3 is, what's the next step? Well, I'm not really sure based on just this front page. It's not very clear from here what I should do or where I should go to book a shoot or anything like that. So that was a little bit lacking there. Number 4, does it rank well? I did a search online. It does rank well on page 1, although low down in a Google search, but there isn't a lot here in terms of wording and things like that to really make it get there. This was it for the photography page. We had a little bit more, I think, on here for other services and things like that, but it could do with a lot more content. And number 5, is it responsive? And it kind of is. I found it really tricky to use on my tablet when trying to click on some of the really small links. However, it did work as a mobile site on my smartphone, so it was much better looking over there. So overall, my impression is that this is a good site, but it needs some more work in some of those areas to really improve it. Okay, number 5 is this one for Gina. Do we know what they do? Yes, they make it really clear here, which is great. Real estate photography, digital images, etc. Where does she work? Well, that was a little bit harder for me to find based on this. There's nothing here to really indicate where she is. She does give a phone number, but no indication of what area she covers. So a visitor here really wouldn't know where she is. Number 3, what's the next step? Again, I'm not really sure. We do have this big offer here of prices starting at $75. Probably not the best thing that you want to be doing, and really doesn't say what to do. Number 4, will it rank well? I can't see this ranking well, as it's almost entirely just images. I did a Google search for a real estate photographer in the area once I found out where Gina was. I got up to page 10 and I couldn't find this site anywhere, and I think that's because this website's all images and no text. So if no one can find your site, then you may as well not have a site at all, because you're invisible really for any new visitors or new contacts or clients finding you. Number 5, is it responsive? Yes, it was. This has been well done. It's a smug mug site. It looked great on any device, which was great. So, however, I felt that it just wasn't a really good site. I think it really needs to start again, either with a completely different layout, or with something other than smug mug to give it something fresh. There just really isn't enough in there. This one, another one, Real Estate Photography, is the name here. One thing I will say about this site is that it was a little bit small. I'd like to see much larger images here that will make me go, wow, these are great, rather than quite small photos that seem to lose the impact a little bit. But let's assess the site for the 5 main criteria. Number 1, do we know what they do? Yes, we do. Again, clearly stated at the top, real estate photography or revolution in real estate marketing. So that's great. Do we know where he works? Yes, if we read the text here, it says based in Bedfordale, Western Australia. So that's good. However, I would probably expand on this a little further to mention other areas. Bedfordale is just kind of a smaller out a suburb or town for a larger city, so I would probably expand on that a bit further. So number 3, what's the next step? It's not immediately clear, although if you read through some of the text right down the bottom, he says, please contact real estate photography if you would like more information about what we can do. So that's reasonable. It's not too bad. At least we know what he's asking for, although it did take a little bit of reading and finding to come across that. So maybe something a bit more compelling and a bit more obvious could possibly help there. Number 4, will the site rank well? Well, it actually does. The photographer doesn't mention the main city nearby, which is Perth, on the page itself, but I looked at his meta description for the page and he says there real estate photography in Perth. So that's the text that shows up in a Google search. So it's certainly worth checking the meta description of your own site to make sure it has your keywords in there. Number 5, is it responsive? And no, it's not. In fact, with the small text, it became quite difficult to use. And on a smartphone, it was really frustrating. It was tiny, so it didn't work well on a mobile or smartphone device. So overall, I think the site has some real positives, but also some negatives in terms of the clarity of the images, which is important for a photographer. And I think that lets down the other good things about it. Okay, the next site is one for Laurie. And do we know what Laurie does? Yes, we kind of do. She mentions estate imaging over here, and in text down below, she says, we are a professional real estate photography and aerial photography business. So that's good. Number 2, do we know where they are? And yeah, we do have the contact information over here. It's kind of small, but it does tell us that she's in Auburn, Washington. But I'd probably like to make that again a little bit clearer, something a little bit stronger and easier to see, preferably as a headline or something perhaps in the main body of the text. What's the next step? Well, on this page, Laurie has clearly laid out her pricing structure, but there's no offer to call her to book a shoot or to click here to fill in a booking form or anything like that. So it's a little bit unsure on that. Number 4, will the site rank well in an online search? There is a reasonable amount of text here, and she does mention real estate photography a few times. I did a Google search for the area and I found the site on page 2, which is good, but it could be better because not many people actually make it to page 2 when they're looking for a photographer. I think it's 75% or so don't go past page 1. And number 5, is it responsive? And no, it's not. In fact, it looked really bad actually on a tablet. With all of this text was really small. I had to scroll across and it was kind of difficult to use. So overall, I think the site needs quite a bit of work. In fact, I would probably start again with a fresh new design rather than try to restructure this one. The next one is from Leah, and she's trying to do real estate photography and is moving into being a real estate agent. So she asked me if it would be best to combine the 2 sites together or to make 2 separate sites. And so I think 2 separate sites would be best. She's clearly targeting 2 very different clients. One is going for home buyers and sellers, and the other is looking for real estate agents. So if we go through the website, is it obvious what she does? I think so. She mentions property photography and talks about property photography again further down, so I think that's clear. Do we know where she works? Well, we know she's in Florida. That's in the name of the site. But where in Florida? It's a really big state. Now, I eventually found that she mentions her address being in Palm Bay, but I'd like to see that made a little bit clearer so it's easier to find. So there's a change, unless she plans on doing all of Florida, and I don't think that's her focus. Number 3, what's the next step? Here she says ready to start a conversation, but again, there's not much to that, so I'd like to see something a little bit stronger there to entice the viewer to contact Leah about her photography. So, number 5, is it responsive? Yeah, it is, and it looked fantastic on a tablet and on a smartphone, so really well done there in terms of the responsiveness of it. So overall, I think the site looks really cool, and that's important, but functionally I think it needs a few little improvements. It could do with a lot more content so that it's clear what area the photographer covers. Now this one is one for Malcolm, who's in England, and this is not the main website for this photographer, so not totally sure why they asked me to review this one, but this is the website they submitted, so I'll go through this. So firstly, do we know what they do? And yes, we do. Malcolm clearly states that he provides photography for local real estate agents, so that's really good. Number 2, where is he? Well, he says he is based in Nottinghamshire, and on the small print it says professional photography for estate agents in East Midlands. I'd like to probably see that point made a little clearer, if it's important to communicate that he is in the East Midlands area, and I think it is. So might be something to work on in terms of putting that into a headline or something here. Number 3, what's the next step? There is a contact link to send an email, and the phone number's down there as well, but nothing beyond that to really grab the visitor and get them to do anything about booking the photo shoot. Number 4, will it rank well? It should. It's not the best website design in the world, but it has included the right words. And there are some images there, but the front page is dominated more by text than by photos. So I would think it would rank quite well. Number 5, is it responsive? And yes, it is, although I found it worked better on a smartphone than on a larger 7-inch tablet. But on the smartphone, it was set up quite well. Being a WordPress site, they do those things really well. So overall, I don't think this site presents all that well for the photographer. I felt it looked a little unprofessional, and that's because it's built on a very basic WordPress theme. However, I looked at the main website for this photographer and it looked a lot better. So I think that's obviously going to be the focus for this photographer. Okay, the next one here is realistic views, and first of all, do we know what they do? Well, yeah, I think we do. It's a really nice looking site, and it says up here that they do property marketing and photography, so that's good and clear. Number 2, where are they? Well, I found that a little harder to find. I did get to it when I went into About and then into the About Us page, and they mentioned there that they are in Darwin, in Australia, but then when you go to their contact page, they mentioned that they're in 2 other cities as well, so that was a little bit tricky to try to find where they are and exactly what they're doing. Number 3, what's the next step? I'm not really sure. There really wasn't anything there telling me to book a shoot or request a price list or anything like that. From the front page, it's all just a photo and a bunch of menu items up the top. Number 4, will it rank well? I don't think the home page will, because again, it's all images. Again, if I go into the services page, this could rank well, but again, all of these items are just images and not text, so that's not helping a whole lot. Unless these images are individually named and titled, I'm not quite sure. I did a Google search for a photographer in Darwin, and I did find the About Us page on page 3 of a Google search, but hardly anyone's going to find it there. So an interesting question is to ask, why did the About page show up in the Google search results when other pages didn't? And as I mentioned earlier, that's where they actually say Darwin. So they mentioned the city name down there, whereas the other pages didn't have anything at all on that. So that's why this page ranks. Number 5, is it responsive? And yes, it was, which was great. Although the size of the photos on the front page didn't change. So it kind of cut off sort of through here, and I wasn't able to see this except for some little scroll button across the bottom, sorry, which was kind of difficult to use. So overall, I really like the look of the site, but I felt that there were a few things that let it down. The photographer told me though that this is a very new site for them, so hopefully things will improve as they develop it further and continue to make some corrections to it. Okay, this is the next site, and do we know what they do here? Yes, they do. If we scroll down, they do mention photography with a photo of a house, although they could state it a little clearer by saying real estate photography here instead of just photography. Where do they work? Well, from the front page, there's nothing to tell me where they are. It really could be anywhere. When I go into the About page, they do mention here this text, which is great. They're based in Sydney Southwest. I would like to see all of this text here onto the front page to make it really clear when people first arrive. I think that would work better. So number 3, what's the next step? The home page doesn't really give us anything except for information about what they do. There's no invite to do anything. If I go to the contact page, it's just a basic email form and things to set up. So I think that could be improved in a big way with clearer directions on what you want the site visitor to do once they get to the site. Will it rank well? Again, I doubt it. There isn't much here. There aren't enough pages there. There's very little content on the front page. So I did do a Google search. I couldn't find this site anywhere. It really was invisible. I looked and looked, but I couldn't find it when searching for a photographer in the area. Number 5, is the website responsive? And it wasn't on my tablet, but it did switch to a mobile device format on my smartphone, which was good to see. So it was easy to use on a smartphone. So overall, I thought the website was a little disappointing. I think it really needs a total total redesign to bring it up to speed so we know where they are and what they do really clearly. Okay, here's the last one. And firstly, do we know what they do? Yes, we do. It says serving the triangle NC with professional photography, professional real estate photography and video services. So that's great. In fact, he also lists who I serve, which is very clear. So that makes it really easy to know what he does. Where are they located? Again, it says it right there, the triangle in North Carolina. So that's great. What's the next step? That I'm not sure of, and there's really nothing on the front page here to tell me, although his contact page is better, and where there's an offer to discuss any ideas I have. You can see here, I'm glad to discuss any ideas you have, and a bit of an invitation there to reach out to the photographers. That's a good step. Although I think I'd prefer to see a bit more of this on the home page, so I didn't have to dig around to find it. Number 4, will it rank well? I think it would. There's a lot of good text, some great keywords. It's really well laid out. But when I did a Google search for a real estate photographer in the triangle in the NC, I couldn't find the site. Now maybe I used the wrong search terms or something. Maybe the site needs better structure to ensure it's found when someone in the area is looking for them. So some changes might be necessary here. I thought it was quite good, but I couldn't find it when I went looking for it. Number 5, is that responsive? Yes, it is, and it looks great on a tablet. Menus and text are very clear, and most of the images were appropriately resized, so it worked out really well on a mobile device. So overall, I think this is a very good site. I think it's been really well put together. There's a lot of good things about it. Okay, so that's it from me. I hope that was helpful. If you'd like to have a chat with me about your website or your business, just send me a message and we might be able to set up a time that works for you. Also, in my training program, I have modules that cover online marketing and website design in detail. So for example, I've got a training module that provides you with a website design that's ready to use. I've got content ideas for your website. I've got the steps that I used to get that real estate photographer from page 7 to having 2 spots on page 1 of a local Google search. And I've also got material on how to rank well for multiple search terms so you're covered no matter what terms are entered. So anyway, that's it for me. If you want to get in touch, send me an email or a message or something. I'd love to hear from you. This has been Darryl Stringer. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.